prefer right one, right? Okay, great. It is now recording. But no matter what is your perceptions will obviously influence your decision makings, right? Assume you are all millionaires. Assume you have a lot of money and you can purchase a house at any place, even in Bay Area. I'm sure your perceptions to the environment will influence your decision makings because everyone would like to live in a place that, in your opinion, from your perception, make you feel safe, right? So then here comes to the question, how can we measure a place whether it makes people feel safe or not safe? Traditionally, we may rely on self-reports, surveys, and mental maps, but they are restricted to small scale, they are labor intensive, they are time consuming. So are there better ways to measure human perceptions of place? Similar to the example I just demonstrated with you, actually, if we can leverage 3D images as well as deep learning, we may also measure your safety perceptions. The hypothesis is that participants, like your perceptions of the 3D images, are treated as a proxy of your perceptions to the built environment. So if we can measure your subjective perceptions of the built environment, then we may train an AI algorithm to modeling the human subjective environmental relationships to modeling the perceptions. So to do so, this is a study in Stockholm. We collaborated with the city planning office at Stockholm, and we recruited some participants working on a similar example question that I asked you just did, like which place looks safe, which place looks less safe, or which place looks safer. And they need to pick up the image that looks safer or looks less safe. All the participants live in Stockholm, and we also recorded their age and gender. After we collect several sampling 3D images, we can compute a safety perception score based on people's responses, based on people's ratings. Then we can give each 3D image a safety score based on their perceptions. So this is a local study in Stockholm, but there is actually another famous dataset called Place Pulse, which collects 6 dimensions of place perception globally, which may reflect people's general perceptual preferences at a global scale. After we collect this survey, collect the 3D images, we further train an AI algorithm, a deep learning algorithm. So for any given input 3D image, look at this. For instance, this is a 3D image. We can input this into the deep learning algorithm, and the outcome is a human perception score. The outcome is the safety perception score. So here are a few sample outputs of the safety perceptions created using our algorithm. Look at these 2 groups of images. So these images are predicted with, generally speaking, like high safety scores, while these images are predicted based on our algorithm, based on local residents' ratings. They are predicted with low safety scores. And based on the results, we further create a map on the right to show the spatial distributions of such AI-based safety perception scores. We further delve into this, and we want to examine what contributes to safety perceptions, and we identified a few variables, such as high quality of the neighborhood's visual appearance, inner city views, and prosperous economy are positively associated with safety perceptions, while certain types of urban facilities might be negatively associated with safety perceptions. One interesting finding is that we noticed that in downtown Stockholm, people may feel downtown areas are safer than those suburban areas, which is, it's a different context setting in the United States. Because in the United States, probably if you are in downtown regions, people may feel downtown regions are more dangerous than those suburban regions. After that, we further are curious, like, there is a place that appears safe, really felt safe by its residents. We collaborated with the city planning office in Stockholm because they are running a survey. They actually running a survey for every 3 years to measure whether a place makes you feel safe or not safe. So given the two different approaches, traditional approaches versus our AI-based approaches, like they are conducted differently. So we think there might be some potential perception bias refers to the differences between these two approaches. And here is an overview of the survey questions in their surveys. They also distribute this survey to their residents and ask like whether you feel safe or not safe in your neighborhood, like how safe or insecure do you feel in your residential area. So just a reminder, so now we have Street View images based safety perceptions. We use AI and Street View images to measure the safety perceptions. We also have the survey-based safety perceptions. We further examine like what makes a place safe and are there any perceptual differences or perception bias. So here are a few interesting findings. We find that vibrant places may look safe, but felt unsafe. And elder people may underestimate the safety of their living places, which may enlarge the perception bias. Because a vibrant place, it may attract a lot of visitors, but from its residents, they may do not feel safe because there are too many visitors. So in this case, here is our takeaway. We feel that our AI-based safety perceptions offers an efficient way to capture people's instant impressions of the built environment, to encoding such human subjective safety perceptions, encoding such human subjective experiences of place. While survey-based safety perceptions may still have its own values because it encodes daily experiences of neighborhood and it captures people's local knowledges. So by doing so, as you can see, we combine Street View images as well as deep learning algorithms to modeling the human subjective safety perceptions of the neighborhood. After we develop the algorithm, we further examine the associations between safety perceptions and crime. And we notice that, like generally speaking, places perceived as unsafe environments are associated with high crime rates. And we also hope to inform like how can we better improve the urban design, how can we better improve the built environment. So for each different regions, we also delved into those places that make you feel safe or make you unsafe, and we extract their environmental factors for safe perceptions or unsafe perceptions. In Stockholm, they have several different land use types. We further delved into each different land use, and we extract different environmental objects for each land use. And we identify like, okay, in this land use, what are the main environmental objects reflected from the Street View images, as well as like what are those safe places or what are those unsafe places that reflected by people's perceptions, people's subjective perceptions. So that's our following work. We also conduct another similar study in Houston, in the United States. We examine another type of perception bias. We examine the mismatch between perceived safety perceptions as well as the crime rates. We are curious, like whether a place make people feel safe, indeed have low crime rates or not. And generally speaking, these two, the safety perceptions and crime rates are correlated with each other, but there are also some mismatches which might be related to the visitors. Like a place with more daytime visitors is safer than they look. A place with more nighttime visits is more dangerous than the perceived safety. So to summarize, in my first project, we are curious about how can we measure the subjective safety perceptions of the neighborhood. And because now we have large-scale Street View images, we can monitor the environmental objects. We can observe the environmental settings, and we can extract those environmental features from Street View images. It provides a very richful and valuable data set to support different urban design, urban planning. After that, we collect people's safety perceptions to the Street View images, and we train deep learning algorithm to better modeling what makes what neighborhood makes people feel safe or not safe. So that's my first project. Then moving forward, the second project refers to geocontextual soundscape to landscape generation. So again, I would like to give you another example. I will play two audios. And when I play these two audios, you will listening to some sound, and please think about, make a guess. What are those places? Okay. So yeah, please close your eyes, and now I will play the first audio. Yeah, you can imagine this, right? Then let me play the second audio. So could you please, okay, now you can open your eyes, and could you please type in some descriptions either for the first one or the second? Okay, yeah, great. Anyone would like to type in more text descriptions for one or two? Natural and urban, okay. Now here are three images. Please make a match. So for the first one, which one? Yes, one or two. Yeah, C. As you can see, when we listening to the sound, we can imagine we can think about, we can make a guess of the environmental settings, right? I'm sure all of you can make a match, right? Okay. Then, if you look at into these images, they are actually all generated using generative AI. So these are not true images. They are all generated using AI. Yeah, so the first project I demonstrated with you, like how we can rely on people visual perceptions of the environment, like using 3D images to encode human subjective safety experiences. But then when we think about our human not only rely on our eyes, we sense the environment with multiple senses. But there was no effective way to visualize such auditory perceptions. Like in previous methods, in previous research, there is lack of intuitive ways to effectively and vividly characterize the acoustic environment, especially when compared with those methods for visual perceptions. This is a photo for our the UT football. If you watch football, you know UT. Last 2 years we had very good results. We entered into the semifinals. When you look at the audience, this photo, you can imagine the sound. You can think about the sound, right? But there is no effective ways that we can process such auditory perceptions. Look at these spectrograms, acoustic signal attributes. They are not intuitive. But if we look at these images, we can run some image analysis to better understand the visual perceptions. And also, as I mentioned, people have multisensory experiences. We sense our world with multiple senses, not only rely on a singular dimension of the human sense. But prior studies usually just focus on one, like just focus on visual perceptions, or didn't, or just rely on like acoustic perceptions. So with the emergence of generative AI, for computer scientists, they have developed some cutting-edge algorithms, such as the audio to image. They call this as the audio to image algorithm, such as Cody, sound to scene, audio token, and Glugen. But for them, the environmental and geographic contexts have been overlooked. For example, if you try these models developed by computer scientists, look at this. If you input a vehicle sound, it will generate a vehicle. If you input a computer's sound, then it will generate a laptop. But we all know as urban planners, as urban designers, we don't care about the object itself. We may want to better understand the environment, the spatial configurations of a place, right? As human, we want to better perceive the environment rather than perceive that specific object. So in this case, is it possible that we also integrate such environmental or geographic objects into the cutting-edge AI algorithm to better manipulate, better modeling our human subjective perceptions of the environment by combining both visual perceptions as well as acoustic perceptions? Yeah, another challenge is they didn't integrate a cutting-edge DIT model, and they didn't, for the evaluation, look at this. Can you see the differences? Can you see the differences among these photos? Probably not, but when we look at this, the evaluation matrix based on some complex mathematical equations, I have no idea of what are those equations, but you can see it seems that there are some differences, but the photos, at least for me, I cannot differentiate them. So they may fall short in capturing geographic semantic alignments between the soundscapes and the images. So in this case, my recent work is about soundscape to landscape. We propose a geocontextual soundscape to landscape method, which can successfully integrate soundscapes such as bird chirping, flowing water, street music, and then translate into the landscape images such as grassland, residential areas, street, highways, etc. It's exactly similar to the example I just demonstrated to you. Like you hear to something, you listen to something, and then we can visualize the soundscape. We can visualize the sound, and we can generate the environmental figures, the environmental settings of that sound. And more importantly, we also propose a few evaluation metrics derived from like geographic perspectives as well as environmental insights. So we constructed two data sets. So here are several example data sets we constructed. We downloaded a lot of soundscapes from an open source data platform. And then we link this with street view images on the right. So here are diverse street view images in different environmental settings. We also create another data set by downloading some YouTube videos. So look at this. So it is called Sonic Urban. Because videos, we can process them into images as well as sound. These are environmental sounds. And we generated the image sound pairs across different environments. After that, we developed a cutting-edge AI algorithm. We call this as SounDiT, which can handle multi-modalities, including images, including text, including the sound, the acoustic information. And we also developed an evaluation framework driven by geographic and environmental insights, driven by the practical insights. Our hypothesis is that the soundscapes, the input soundscape and the output landscapes should have similar environmental characteristics and place settings. So in this case, starting from element level, scene level, and human perception levels, we quantified the environments, the places, the neighborhoods of the input soundscape and the landscape to ensure they are similar to each other. So here are a few examples using our evaluation matrix, like in perception. So by doing so, like for the perception, we hope that the input image, the input landscape, and the output landscape may evoke a similar perceptions, human subjective perceptions of the place, of the experience at a specific place. We hope they are similar to each other. So here are a few sample images generated using our algorithm. This is our SounDIT. And if you compare with the ground truth, you will see the environmental settings are very similar to each other. But if we try some other algorithms like the audio token, as you can see for audio token, this is something we want to avoid because in design, when we design something, we don't want to generate the object itself, but we want to generate the environment to inform more urban studies, design studies, and other practices. And our algorithms perform much better than others across all the metrics. And we also invited participants to evaluate the generated results, to rate whether it is appropriate, to whether it aligns with their human perceptions, human subjective perceptions, to ensure our algorithm indeed reflect people's subjective experiences at different places. So that's my second project. Give you another brief review. So for the first project, we try to understand using AI to understand human subjective safety perceptions through visual perceptions. Well, for the second one, because of the multimodality characteristics of the generative AI, we can combine multiple modalities, including the sound, text, and the images together. So this may even support the landscape generation from soundscape. Even just from the soundscape, we can generate some landscape images. And all of those images are similar to our human subjective perceptions of the world. So that's the two key projects I would like to communicate, I would like to share with you today. And finally, I also want to have another brief overview of some other projects related to my work, related to the subjective experiences. At the beginning, I mentioned that my work primarily focusing on understand human subjective experiences, such as your perceptions, as well as emotions, cognitions, as well as creativity. So the two projects I presented primarily focusing on the human perceptions, like how can we understand your subjective feelings toward a specific environment at a different place. I previously also leveraged social media photo as well as cutting-edge facial recognition AI algorithms to understand human subjective emotions globally. For instance, look at this. With cutting-edge AI algorithms, we can measure the happiness, we can measure the smiles from those photos. Like Mona Lisa, you can see its happiness score is around like 70. And we collected social media photos from Flickr globally. We created human emotion global happiness maps across 80 global tourist attractions. This can help us better understanding like at which place people may feel joy. If we want to moving forward to develop the joy print in the next decade, I'm sure that we hope to develop some places that may make people feel happy. Another ongoing project that I'm currently working on is we also collected people's voters' emotions from tweets, their responses to the US election 2024 in the last year. We all know that last year it was a historical election with a lot of ups and downs. Your emotions may also have a lot of falls and rise, right? We noticed we saw a lot of events such as Biden withdraw his candidacy and the Trump like his assassination, as well as there are also some other events like the debates between the two candidates, right? The debates between them, and the voters' emotions may also have rise and fall. So we collected these emotions and we make the maps to showcase how different regions they shift their emotions expressed on the social media platforms. One last thing is, as I mentioned, I'm also interested about how generative AI, how AI may empower creativity. Although creativity is subjective and people usually think creativity is based on the designer's own experiences and machines cannot replace this. But is it possible that we leverage generative AI to empower creativity? Recently, the generative AI, such as agent. The large language model-based agents can collaborate to solve complex tasks, which with each individual agent is responsible for a specific task. In this case, I'm a geographer, so I'm very good at making maps. I also teach cartography class at UT, so I love maps. It's similar to other design practices, but here, like the maps is just one design field, right? We want to develop beautiful map. We want to make visual appealing maps. Is it possible that we develop some agents to collaboratively work together to develop beautiful maps? So agents here, we can have multiple agents, and each agent is empowered by a specific large language model. Yeah, so is it possible to develop a novel generative AI model that efficiently and automatically generate visual appealing maps while preserving both geographic accuracy and informativeness? When you use maps, we hope the maps could represent accurate geographic locations, right? So that's why you want to use maps, because it can reflect accurate geographic locations. But if you ask ChatGPT or other generative AI to make a map, it's highly likely that the maps is hallucinated without any accurate geographic information. So in this case, is it possible that we develop a novel AI algorithm that can make the map accurate and also beautiful, also visually appealing? So we propose a Carto agent, which can have multiple agents, which have multiple large language models, and they collaboratively work together so that we can even transfer the styles, like this painting, Van Gogh's sunflower, this painting style to the map data. And here are the beautiful maps generated using our Carto agent. I'm sure like in design or other like urban design or urban planning practices, you may have similar needs, like to how can we better improve the urban space, how can we better design the environment. But generative AI, if we directly use that, it may generate some fake information and inaccurate or misleading information. In this case, probably agents could bridge the gap here. So to summarize, for my presentation today, moving forward, I would like to bring your attention that we are now in the era of generative AI, and advanced AI methods could provide novel opportunities to advance knowledge of our human subjective experiences of environment. We can encode human subjective experiences of environment. And the geographic principles as well as environmental theories are still essential to enrich the current data science and AI practices from a human perspective, especially in the next few years. Like the AI is evolving so fast. There are a lot of debates about in the future, what if do we really need human to guide the AI, or AI will evolve by itself? Then in this case, like what if like AI take control a lot of resources? So where is our human? Where is our human? We feel it is still necessary to integrate human perspectives in governing, in managing, and in guiding the AI development. And finally, more psychological and neuroscience methods might be integrated to better examining human environmental relationships, to better encoding the experiences. So that's also something I look forward to make more collaborations with you to see if we can leverage or even apply some of the methods like in your practices to better encoding our experience. Yeah. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you, and I welcome all of your questions, feedbacks.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Yuhao, for this insightful presentation. Jens, and we have like 13 minutes left. I will open the ground for questions. Who wants to go first?
I should probably go first. Get the ball rolling. So thank you first of all for the fascinating presentation. I'm glad that we were able to record most of it. So unfortunately, we'll be missing a few minutes at the beginning. Thinking about the sort of safety assessment capture, looking at Stockholm and understanding sort of relative safety, etc. I mean, I'm sure you're sort of familiar with I think it's Daniele Kertia's project around happy maps and encoding sort of pretty looking environments and being able to sort of reroute based on enjoyable paths, looking at, doing something like Google Maps, but allowing you to route based on that. I mean, presumably it would be altogether possible to consider routing around, less safe environments, or, optimizing for a more safe path through a city. Is that something you've looked at all?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, thanks for the question. I fully agree with you. So far we already developed the algorithms and we already calculated the safety scores. So I definitely hope these safety scores might be applied in different applications. For instance, we can probably show an interactive map to support police station or to support neighborhoods like the residents to understand whether a place makes them feel safe or not safe. And another way, as you mentioned, one-way routing, like the Google Maps currently only have the most fuel efficient road, but probably in the future we can say recommend some routes that make people feel most safest route. Yeah, this is definitely something I'm very interested in and hope to continue this direction.
Great, thank you. Before John, I'll just do a quick follow-up question. So you mentioned that there's like a safety, there's sort of everybody has their own sort of perceptive bias about safety. Were there so generally, I guess you have a value which says, okay, you perceive a space as more or less safe relatively. Did most perceptions of space sort of follow that curve, like whether you're positive or negative, or were there people who were just like real outliers and certain locations just triggered them in some way? Was that somehow captured in the data?
Yeah, generally speaking, both perception bias, whether the perceived safety and crime rate, as well as like the survey-based safety perception with our AI-based survey safety perception, they are correlated with each other. Like these two are very similar, but there are still a few mismatches. So those are kind of the outliers, but we think it's acceptable. And for the crime, as you can see, most of them they locate as in these two quadrants, but there are still a few regions like there are some mismatches. So overall, the pattern is like as aligned with our intuition, aligned with our expectation, and we just want to identify like what could be some potential reasons like in these two quadrants. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. John, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Keen. I really like that thread of question. I actually had similar questions. Perceived crime, perceived safe versus crime rate. I think that's really interesting. You kind of mentioned, Dr. Kang, about like you wanted to dive in deeper into maybe what causes that discrepancy. Which seems like a bigger topic, but maybe really interesting. But maybe for this talk about, keeping in the spirit of like subjective perception, et cetera, if you were to do a routing through Houston and or Stockholm, or maybe Houston's a good example. I noticed when I was looking at your maps of Houston, it was like Fifth Ward was maybe an example of like actual crime, but it seemed like it was perceived safer than it really is. So I'd be curious if you were rerouting, if you're going to send a path for somebody like through the space, would you develop it based on the perception of safety, or would you do it based on the reality of safety? Does that kind of make sense? It's like, what's more important, like to this paper at the end of the day? And like, is it how somebody do you find more value in how people think of the space, or do you find more value in how, like, I don't know, the statistical reality of a space? If you
Oh,
understand the question.
I like this question. I like this question. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because if we just rely on crime, we can also like define the safest route purely based on crime. But I think that's something was missing in previous studies because we actually didn't account for people's subjective perceptions, right? If we just have crime, then that's just it seems that it's not necessarily related to our human subjective experiences at a place, right? So probably a combination. I'm thinking probably we can have a combination, like both crime as well as safety perceptions, because we also hope that when people like routine, they tend to visit some places, makes them feel safe as well as low crime. Yeah, probably a balance, I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Hi, Professor Kang. I have another question. I mean, also related to the crime perception by the residents and so on. I got a question, a particular one. When you show the picture of Stockholm, were did the participants know where where the pictures were taken, or was basically they were only judging the picture based on what they were seeing?
Yes, that's another good question. We only provide the two images. We didn't provide them the place.
Okay, yeah, because I mean there is some kind of like nuance. Because okay, if I know the neighborhood, and I feel that the neighborhood is safe or not safe, no matter which picture you show me, I might have already a strong opinion about the neighborhood. And then the other question that I had is related to the human part, because I remember you mentioned that you are considering two metrics, the age and the gender of the participants, right? But nothing more. Have you thought about extending these metrics and making it more granular, like adding some other kind of demographics? Because according to the things that I have been seeing, I mean, we have been also looking at the human-centric perception of spaces, and it varies. It differs a lot depending on your demographics. Like, like a young woman might feel different than an old man in certain spaces, nah? Because they feel the they perceive the space completely the different way. I mean, I'm thinking about when you asked at the very beginning which place, whether the downtown or the suburbs, feel safe or not. I saw that Sebastian gave an answer, and the rest of us gave another answer, and that's basically probably because, I mean, like the suburbs might feel different for depending on your demographics, your history, your background. I mean, if you're a black person, you might feel safer or unsafer in certain places or not. I'm wondering whether you have considered add this information also to the study.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I do feel like if we reproduce this, actually, I'm also reproduce this in the United States setting. When we conduct the research, yeah, I have two items to share. First, we actually collected the racial, ethnicity, demographic information. However, the case in US is different from the case in Stockholm because actually most of them are white. Like in Stockholm, most of them are white. What they are curious about is not the racial or ethnicity differences, but they are curious about foreign born versus local born. But
Yeah, exactly.
but at that time we didn't notice that, so it's kind of like something invalid until we collect the data. Then we realize, okay, we shouldn't collect the race, but we should collect that. And we also compare the participants, like different age and gender groups, their perceptions to the safety. But we notice that actually there are not significant differences among ages as well as genders. Ages, especially for ages, people tend to have very similar safety perceptions. There are more differences among genders, between genders, but the differences are also not very significant. So later we didn't account for this.
Okay,
But
yeah,
if we
thanks.
reproduce this in other locations, yeah, I agree with you, and I feel it's definitely important to account for like racial and other social demographic information.
Okay, thanks. Folks, we still have 2 minutes. 2 minutes left. Come on. I have a final question for you, Professor Kang, and it's not related exactly to this presentation, but to your biography and the topics you're working on. And I thought the topic was called ethical cartography. Could you talk a little bit more about what ethical cartography means?
Yeah, so it's also related to the last slides I presented. Because if we use generative AI to make maps, there will be a lot of inaccuracies. Similarly, for you, not sure if you have used ChatGPT or other generative AI to support your practices, to support your designs, to generate some designs. Although some of the designs generated by AI are fabulous, but they cannot be implemented into practices directly, right? So we propose a Carto agent. We try to solve this issue. Like, can we make sure the maps still preserve the geographic accuracies and informativeness to ensure the maps generated are still accurate? So that is one aspect of the ethical cartography. Some other ethical issues that we discussed, such as the copyright issue, such as the licensing issue, such as the social bias, representativeness, inaccuracies, and sustainability, as well as transparency. Those are some social issues related to the use of generative AI for making cartography, for making maps. So that's what I mean, the ethical cartography. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
I just feel this might be similar to the design or like any other practices, like for built environment, for better modeling the built environment. If we use generative AI directly, there must be some ethical issues. So how can we point them out, and how can we even develop some potential solutions?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I think we can wrap up then. I'm gonna thank you again in the name of all the participants or people who attended today and people who will be watching who will watch the recording in the future. Thanks for your presentation. It was very insightful and very helpful for us. And yeah, with that, we think we can call it up.
Okay,
No?
thank you.
Thank you and wish you all a nice day. No? Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Okay, bye.